Very good morning, students. Welcome to Science Section for class 10. And today in this session, we'll see another interesting lesson, biology lesson, that is unit 17, reproduction in plants and animals. So today in this session, we'll be learning about reproduction in plants. Now, under reproduction in plants, we'll see the different vegetative reproduction in plants, parts of their flower and their functions, all types and modes of pollination and their importance, and what is. Now, first we'll understand what is reproduction. Now, we know that the characteristics of the living organism, isn't it? Living organisms can breathe, can move from one place to another, can reproduce. So, all the living organism have the ability to reproduce more of its own kind and by a process which is called as reproduction. Now, if you see reproduction, the formation of a new individual is called as reproduction, and it ensures the continuity and the survival of the species, isn't it? Now, if you see, the time that is required to reproduce also varies from organism to organism, isn't it? And you can see the variations in the period of the reproduction is, for example, yeast, bacteria, cow, elephant, human beings, etc., isn't it? Now, the reproduction is of three types. One is vegetative reproduction, asexual reproduction, and sexual reproduction. If you see the vegetative reproduction is a new plantlets are formed. New plant is formed from vegetative cells. These vegetative cells are the somatic cells. That is nothing but the body cells, right? Or from the bud or from the organ of the plant. So, vegetative reproduction of the plant may be from the part of the plant, for example, root, stem, leaf, bud, etc. So these parts get detached from the parent body and thus go into an new individual, right? New daughter plant, you can say. So it has only the mitotic division. The division that it takes place, the cell division that it takes place is the mitotic division, and no gamete fusion will be there, right? So there will not be the involvement of the gametes, and the daughter plants are similar, genetically similar to that of the parent plant. Okay, so vegetative reproduction may takes place through various parts of the plant, I said. So it can be through leaves, stem, root, and bulbils. Now let's see them one by one. Now the first one is the vegetative reproduction that takes place by leaves. Now here the leaves grow into the new plant, right? Now for example is the bryophyllum. So in bryophyllum the small plants grow at the leaf notches. Now these are the leaf notches, that is the edge, isn't it? So this is the leaf notches. So at the end or the edge of the leaves, the small plant grow, and this develop into a daughter plant which is genetically similar to that of the parent plant. So this is called as the vegetative reproduction by leaves. So the example is bryophyllum, where the small plants grow at the leaf notches. The next one is the vegetative reproduction by stem. Now if you see, especially in strawberries, now some of the aerial weak stem touches the ground and it grows into a new plant. So when the connection with the parent cell is broken, this grows into a completely new daughter plant, right? Or the offsprings becomes independent. So this happens in the example is the strawberry, but this is the vegetative reproduction by the stem, where the weak stem touches the ground and it grows into a new daughter plant. Now next is the vegetative reproduction by root. Now here the example you can say is the tuberous roots, for example asparagus or the sweet potato. Now here the part which is used to store the food, that is the storage organ, develops into a new plant, and here you can see the buds on the storage organ are the roots which goes into an young plant. Now here this grows into an young plant, isn't it? Now this is the old root tubers, right? Tubular plant or tuberous roots. Now this develops the bud and this grows into a new plant. So this is the vegetative reproduction by root. This one is the vegetative reproduction in bulbils. Now in some plants, if you see, the flower bud grows into a new plant. Now here you can see the bulbil. These are the flowering bud of the new plant. Now this, when falls on the ground, they grow into a new plant. Now for example, you can see this is the example of an agave. Agave is the name of the plant. And what happens here, the buds, so these are the buds that falls on the ground, and this grows into a new daughter plant. So this is the vegetative reproduction by bulbils. Next we'll see other types of vegetative reproduction. Now the first one is the fragmentation. Now this can be very well seen in the Spirogyra. Now in the fragmentation, what happens, this Spirogyra, actually it is a type of an algae. Now the breaking of the filament takes place into various fragments. So it is called as fragmentation. The name arises, or the fragmentation is named after the filament that breaks into various fragments. Now if you see Spirogyra, it's a type of an algae. It's in the form of a filament. You can see here in the picture, it's in the form of a filament, and each filament is having at least one cell, and this give rise to a new filament by the cell division. Now here you can see that this breaks in the middle and splits into two fragments, and each fragments grows into a new Spirogyra. So this is called as fragmentation. The next is the fission, binary fission, and this takes place in the amoeba. We can take the example of amoeba. Now here this is the parent amoeba. Now this is the parent amoeba. Now this parent amoeba undergoes binary fission by the elongation of the nucleus. First the nucleus get elongated. Now after the nucleus gets elongated, the cytoplasm, the cell, the membrane, that is the outer membrane, gets or develops grooves in the sense the depression in the outer membrane or the cell membrane takes place. Then the division of the cytoplasm as well as the nucleus takes place, and this divided into two daughter nucleus. So this is called as binary fission. Bi means two, binary two, so it divides into two daughter cells. So a parent cell divides into two daughter cells, and each cell develops into a new adult organisms, and this is called as the binary fission, and it takes place in the amoeba. Next is the budding process. So budding process is nothing but the formation of the individual organisms or the individual daughter cell from the small projections, or that is called as bud. The projection that appears on the cell is called as the bud, and so the naming is the budding, and this takes place especially in the yeast. Now here you can see the cell of the yeast, now where the buds develops on the top of the yeast cell. So this developing bud goes into a new daughter cells. Here you can see it splits from the parent cell and develops into a new individual organisms. So this is called as the budding. Now the next one is regeneration. Regeneration in the sense the ability of the organisms to develop from the lost part of the organisms. Now the ability of the last part, that is LOST, lost part, into a new organism is called as the regeneration. So it takes place in the organisms such as Hydra and Planaria. Now we look into the picture. This is the Planaria. Now this undergoes, or it reproduces through a process which is called as regeneration. Now here in the picture you can see that the lost part develops into a new individual, I said, isn't it? Now here in the picture you can see this picture where the Planaria divides into three parts. Now here you can see the first part, second part and the third part, isn't it? Now these three parts develops into a new individual. Now for example, take the first part. This is the first part, head, isn't it? So this develops into a new organisms where the tail, the middle part and the tail part develops and the new organism is formed. Now the second one is the middle part. Now this middle part develops the head so that and the tail, so that it develops into a new organisms. Now consider the tail part. This develops the upper part and the head, and it develops into a new organisms. So the ability of the lost body part into a new organisms is called as the regeneration, and this takes place in Hydra as well as in Planaria. Next is the asexual reproduction. Now, asexual reproduction is nothing but the development of the offsprings from the single parent without the fusion of the gametes is called as asexual reproduction. That is, one single parent give rise to the individual or the offsprings is called as the asexual reproduction. Now, we know that the cell division is of two types, isn't it? Mitotic division and the meiosis division. Now, here in asexual reproduction, only the mitotic cell division takes place and the meiosis does not take place. And the offsprings that is produced by this type of reproduction are not only identical to their parent organisms, it is exactly the Xerox copy of the parent organisms. You cannot say it is similar, it is exactly the Xerox copy because it do not undergo the fusion of the gametes. Without the formation or the fusion of the gamete takes place, so it exactly resembles or exact copies of the parent. Now, if you see the asexual reproduction, this occurs by spore formation, spores, right? And this is common in the fungi and the bacteria. Now, here you can see the examples of this spore formation in Rhizopus. Now, here the spore formation of a structure is called as the sporangium that develops from the fungal hypa. Now, here you can see the fungal hypa. Now, here you can see the fungal hypa. So, this sporangium develops from the fungal hypha, and the nucleus divides several times within this sporangium. Now, here you can see the sporangium. So, this is the spore that is called as the sporangium, and the nucleus develops several times within this sporangium, and each nucleus with a small amount of the cytoplasm, because it needs cytoplasm to develop into a new spore, isn't it? So, with the small amount of the cytoplasm, it develops into a spore, and this spore again develops into a new hypa, and this falls on the ground and it develops into a new individual, right? So, this is how the asexual reproduction takes place, and this is called as the spore formation. Next, we'll see the sexual reproduction in plants. Now, if you see the sexual reproduction in plants, two gametes formation takes place, and these are fused together to form the offsprings of their own kind, and the male and the female organs are needed to produce the gametes. And here we are going to learn about the reproduction in plants. So, to understand the reproduction in plants, we need to know about the structure of the plant. Now, first we'll see the structure of a typical flower, because flower develops into a seed, and from the seed a new plant is produced. So, there's reproduction takes place, isn't it? So, we'll see the parts of a typical flower. Now, here you can see the picture of a flower. The flower is modified shoot system with limited amount of the growth, which is responsible for the reproduction. And this flower, if you see, it consists of four parts. That is the calyx, which consists of sepals, corolla, which consists of petals, and androecium consists of the stamen, and the gynoecium, which is also called as the pistil, consists of the carpels. Now, let's see in detail the parts of the flower. Now, we said that it consists of the four important parts, isn't it? The first one is the calyx. The calyx consists of the sepals. Now, here you can see the sepals, that the green part that is attached to the bottom of the flower is the sepals. Now, the next one is the corolla. Corolla is the colorful part of the flower that is called as the petals. That is the outermost part, that is, you can see this is petals, isn't it? And these two are non-essential parts because they do not directly take part in the reproduction process. The next one is the androecium. Now, androecium and the gynoecium are the essential parts of the flower because they take part in the reproduction process. Now, if you see the androecium is the male part of the flower, and it consists of the stamen. Here you can see the stamen, isn't it? It is made up of the anther and the filament. Here each stamen consists of the filament like structure. Here you can see a filament like structure, isn't it? So that is called as the filament, and a small bag like structure at the end of the filament. Here you can see a yellow color bag like structure at the end of each filament is called as the anther. At the tip you can see, isn't it? So the pollen grains are produced in the anther. In the anther you have a pollen sacs. So inside the pollen sacs the pollen grains are produced. This is the gynoecium. Gynoecium is the female part of the flower, and this is made up of ovary, style, and the stigma. Now here you can see, isn't it? So this is the female part of the flower. It consists of the ovary. Here you can see the bulged structure inside the flower, that is called as the ovary, inside which you have the ovules, right? So these are the ovules on either side, you can see, isn't it? So these are the ovules. Next is the stigma. Here you can see the stigma at the tip, isn't it? So that is called as the stigma, and the filament like structure is called as the style. Now here you can see a filament like structure, so that is called as the style. And this tube inside the style, you have a thin filament that goes inside the style, which is called as the pollen tube. And together the stigma, style, pollen tube, ovary and ovule is called as the pistil, right? And this comes under the female part of the flower. Next we'll see the pollen grains. Pollen grains are usually spherical in shape. You can see the picture here, and this consists of two walls, two layers. Now here you can see that it consists of two layers. The first outermost hard layer is called as the exine. So this is, here you can see it is not even, isn't it? So it has rough surface, so it is hard. The outermost surface is called as the exine. The inner thin layer is called as the intine, right? So this is the innermost layer, and this layer will be thin and continuous layer, and it is made up of the cellulose and a material which is called as the pectin. If you see the matured pollen grain, it consists of two cells, inside which you can see two cells, the vegetative nucleus and the generative nucleus. So these are the two cells, vegetative cell you can say, or the generative cell. If you see the vegetative cell, it consists of a large nucleus, and if you see the generative cell, it mitotically divides into two male gametes. This will divide into two male gametes in the process of reproduction. Now this is the stamen. It consists of a filament and an anther. This anther produces the pollen grains. This takes place in the reproduction process. Now look into the picture, children. Here you can see the female part. Now this consists of the stigma, style, ovary and the gametes that is present inside the ovary. Transfer of the pollen grains from the other anther of other plant comes and gets deposit in the stigma, and this inside the stigma is the pollen tube, inside which you have a pollen tube, and this filament structure, the complete outermost filament like structure is called as the style. Now here you have a bulge like structure that is called as the ovary. Inside the ovary you have the female gametes. Next we'll see the structure of ovule. Now ovule are present inside the ovary, and thus ovule consists of the main important part which is called as the nucellus, and this is enclosed by the two, these are the two integuments. So these integuments has an opening which is called as the micropyle. Now here you can see a two layer, isn't it? Now here two layer, isn't it? This is one layer, and here you have the two layer, isn't it? So these two layers of integuments leaves an opening. This opening is called as the micropyle. This ovule is attached to the ovary with the help of a stalk which is called as the funiculus. So with the help of the funiculus, it gets attached to the ovary. This is called as the base part, isn't it? This is called as chalaza. Chalaza is the base part of the ovule. Now, if you see the embryo sacs, this is called as the embryo sac. Inside you have the embryo sac, isn't it? So this consists of 7 cells, and the 8th nucleus is located within the nucellus. Now if you see 3 cells which is present at the micropyle, at the side of a micropyle, so it is called as the micropylar end. So this side is called as the micropylar end. Now this consists of 3 cells. Now here you can see the 3 cells, isn't it? So these are called as the egg apparatus. So these are called as the egg apparatus. So these are called as the egg apparatus, which is present near the micropyle. So it is called as the micropylar end. And you have 3 cells near the chalaza, isn't it? So this is called as the chalaza end, right? So these 3 cells are called as the antipodal cells. So these are placed near the chalaza end. So it is called as the antipolar cells. Now here at the middle you can see 2 nucleus, isn't it? So the remaining 2 nucleus is called as the polar nuclei. polar nuclei, and this is found at the center. So in the egg apparatus, one cell is called as the female gamete and the remaining two cells are called as the synergids. Now out of these three, one will be the egg cell and the other two which is present is called as the synergids. Understood, children? So this is about the embryo sac. So the embryo sacs consist of 7 cells, and the 8th cell will be the polar nucleus which is present at the center. 3 cells are present near the micropolar end, and 3 cells are present near the chalasa end, and these two nucleus are called as the polar nucleus which is present at the center, and in the egg apparatus one will be the egg, the other two will be the synergids. And if you see the process of the reproduction in the flowering plants, it consists of two processes. One is the pollination, the other one is the fertilization. Let's see what is pollination. Now pollination is nothing but the transfer of the pollen grains that is produced in the anther to the stigma. Now this is the anther, right? And it produces the pollen grains in the pollen sacs, we said, isn't it? And this pollen grains is transferred to the stigma of the flower, and that process, that transfer of the pollen grains is called as pollination. Now what is the importance of pollination? Because it results in the fertilization and it leads to the formation of the fruits and the seeds, which is very, very important, isn't it, for the reproduction process. So it is very important. Next, new varieties of plants are formed through new combinations, especially in the cross pollination. In case of cross pollination, new varieties of plants can be formed by new combination. So the pollination is very, very important. And there are two types of pollination. One is the self-pollination, the other one is the cross-pollination. Self-pollination is called as the autogamy. Now what is autogamy? Autogamy is the transfer of the pollen grains from the anther to the stigma of the same flower. It takes place within one flower. So it is called a self-pollination, right? So here you can see that it consists of a anther, isn't it? So from this anther, the pollen grain is transferred to the same flower, stigma of the same flower. So it is called as the self-pollination. For example, you can say hibiscus, right? The hibiscus that normally we see around our surroundings. Now what are the advantages of self-pollination? Now self-pollination is possible in bisexual flowers, and it do not depend upon the agencies of the pollination. There are agencies of pollinations. We'll be learning about the agencies of pollination next. So it does not require any agencies for pollination because it takes place within the same flower, right? And there is no wastage of the pollen grains because it is transferred to the same flower. There is no wastage of the pollen grains. So these are the advantages of the self-pollination. Now there are also disadvantages. The first one is that the seeds are less in number, and if you see the seeds that is produced will produce a weaker plants. It will not be a nutrition seed, and new varieties cannot be formed because the pollination takes place within the flower. So this is about the self-pollination. And if you see cross-pollination is nothing but the transfer of the pollen grains from one flower to the other flower. That is the pollen grains that is produced in the anther is transferred from this flower to the stigma of the other flower, but it will be of the same species. Now for example, you can see apple, grapes, plums. So this undergo cross pollination. Now what are the advantages of cross pollination? The seeds that is produced due to this cross pollination will grow better, will be not a weaker one, it will be a strong one, and also produces varieties of new varieties can be obtained. Next one is the more viable seeds are produced. That is the viable seeds in the sense the seeds which are capable of germinating under suitable conditions are called as the viable seeds. So these can be produced by cross pollination. The next one is the disadvantages of cross pollination. And if you see the cross pollination, it requires a barrier, isn't it? It requires agents to undergo cross pollination, and more wastage of the pollen grains takes place because it has to transfer from one flower to the other flower. So wastage of the pollen grains may occur, and it may introduce some unwanted characters of the flower, which is not at all a part of both the flowers. Now flowers also depend upon the external agencies. So external agencies must, or it requires external agencies for cross pollination. Now we'll see what are the agencies for cross pollination. Now the agents of cross pollination. Now in order to bring about the cross pollination, the pollen grains has to be carried from one flower to the other plant, isn't it? And this is done by the agents, for example insect, wind or water. Now the first one is the pollination by wind. Now here you can see that with the help of wind, right, the pollination with the help of wind, it is carried, the amount of pollen grains are carried and it is dropped into the other plant, stigma of the other plant. Now the pollination with the help of wind is called as the anemophily. Now this anemophilous flowers, it produces a large amount of the pollen grains, and if you see the pollen grains, it will be small, smooth, and it will be very light in weight. So these pollen grains are driven away or blown off to a distance more than 1000 kilometers. And the stigma, if you see, it is comparatively very large, and it has more space, and it consists of some airy like substances which can trap the pollen grains. Now for example, cactus, grasses are carried out by the pollination by wind. The next is the pollination by insects. Next is the pollination by insects. Now pollination with the help of insects like honeybees, flies, etc. is called as the entomophily. Now what happens? To attract this insect, the flowers will have bright colors, isn't it? And it also has nectar, the sweet material called nectar, and it has nice fragrance, isn't it? So the pollen grains and are carried away by the insect. Now here you can see in the picture, it is carried away by the insect and it is dropped into the other plant, a stigma of the other plant, isn't it? And if you see the pollen grains, these pollen grains will be larger in size, and if you see the outermost membrane, that is the exine, will be pitted, it will be spiny, so that it gets sticks to the insect, and it is dropped into the stigma of the other plant. Now approximately 80% of the pollen grain is carried out by the honeybees, especially the insect called honeybees, right? Next we'll see the pollen grains by water. Next is the pollen grains by water. Now pollen grains with the help of water is called as hydrophily. Hydro means water. So with the help of water, the cross pollination takes place, especially in the aquatic plants. It is mostly carried out in the aquatic plants, and the pollen grains that is produced by these plants will be large in number, right? So they are produced in large in number, and these pollen grains are very light. They float on the surface of the water till they land on the stigma of the female flower. Now for example, hydrilla can be done by this method. Now the next one is the pollination by animals. Next is the animal pollinator. Now when the pollination takes place with the help of an animal, then it is called as the zoophily. Now the flowers attract the animals, isn't it, by their light, colors or the scent, etc. So some of the birds or the squirrels carry the pollen grains, and it is dropped into the stigma of the other plant. Now for example, squirrels pollinate flowers of the silk cotton trees. So this is an example. Now let's see the fertilization in plants. Now we know that the pollen grains reaches the stigma of the other plant, isn't it? Now this is called as pollination. Once the pollen grains reach the right stigma, it begins to germinate, right? Now here we also said that in the ovule, right, in the ovary, the nucleus divides mitotically, and there are 7 cells that is present in the nucleus, isn't it? So that is in the ovary, right? And these 7 cells get originated in such a way that 3 cells are present in the micropolar end and 3 cells are in the chalaza end, and there are 2 nucleus that is present in the middle, isn't it? Now here you can see that how these cells divide into 7 cells, and 3 will be at one corner, that is micropolar end, the other 3 will be in the chalaza end, and 2 nucleus will be in the middle in the embryo sac. Now look into the arrangement. Now here you can see that there are 3 cells here in the micropolar end, 3 cells in the chalaza end, and 2 nucleus at the middle. Right, and we also said that in this one will be the egg apparatus, isn't it? Now here you can see the egg apparatus, which is given in red in color, isn't it? So this red color indicates the egg apparatus, and the one which is present in the middle is called as the polar nucleus. Now you can see that the pollen grain that deposits from the anther into the stigma. Now here you can see that the pollen grains. Now this pollen grains get detached from the anther and it gets deposited in the stigma of the flower. It gets landed. Now you can see here it gets landed into the stigma of the flower. Now once it get landed into the stigma of the flower, now here it consists of the generative cell and the vegetative cell, isn't it? The pollen grain consists of 2 cells, we said, isn't it? And the tube-like structures elongates, emerges, and through the germ spore, and the content that is present, that is the vegetative cell and the reproductive cell, enters into the embryo sacs. Now here you can see that. Now this vegetative cell again divide into 2 sperms, that is the male gamete. Now here you can see that it enters into the embryo sacs and it gets fused with the egg apparatus. So one of the cell gets fused with the, that is one sperm fused with the egg, the other fuses with the nucleus, right, that is present. The other forms fuses with the secondary nucleus. So this is called as the secondary nucleus, and it forms the primary endosperm. Now look into the picture, children. So this is the pollen grain. This consists of 2 cells. One is the vegetative cell and the next one is the generative cell. Now when the pollen grain grows through the tissues of the stigma, that is it forms in small tube-like structure, that is the pollen tube, isn't it? And when it reaches the micropyle, now in the style, when it moves through the style, it divides into 2 sperms, that is the generative cell divides into 2 sperms and the vegetative cell degenerates. Now this, on landing the stigma, it develops a tube-like structure. Now in the tube-like structure, both the vegetative cell and the generative cell pass through it, and while passing through it, the vegetative cell degenerates, it disappears. Only the generative cell reaches the micropyle. Now when it reaches the micropyle, now what will happen? The tip of the pollen tube bursts when it enters into the embryo sac. Now here you can see that one fuses with the egg cell and the other and here you can see that the other fuses with the polar nuclei. So one sperm fuses with the egg and the other fuses with the secondary nucleus. So the one fuses with the egg is called as the dipole zygote, and the other sperms that fuses with the secondary nucleus forms the primary endosperm. Now here you can see that three nucleus fuses together. That is, the sperm fuses with the secondary nucleus, that is two nucleus that is present at the center. So triple fusion takes place and it forms the primary endosperm. So since three nucleus fuse together, it is called as the triploid in nature. Now here you can see that there are two types of fusion that takes place. Two fusion takes place. One is the syngamy, that is the fusion with the egg apparatus, and the triple fusion, that is the fusion of the three nucleus, takes place in the embryo sacs. So it is called as the double fertilization. Now after this triple fusion, the primary endosperm nucleus develop into an endosperm, and this endosperm provides food to the developing embryos. The synergis that is present on the either side and the antipolar cells degenerates, and this ovule develops into an seed. Here you can see the integuments of the ovule, isn't it? This develops into a seed coat, and the ovary enlarges, develops into a fruit, and this fruit contains the future plant, isn't it? So when it germinates, it develops into a new plant. So this is about the fertilization. So if you see the significance of fertilization, it stimulates the ovary to develop into a fruit, and it helps in the development of new characteristics from two different individuals. So these are the significance of the fertilization. So this is about the fertilization in plants, children. So far in this session we have learnt about the vegetative reproduction. In that we have learnt about the vegetative reproduction by leaves, root, bulbils, fragmentation, regeneration, and what is the asexual reproduction in plants and sexual reproduction in plants. In that we have learnt about the structure of the anther and the pollen grain, what is gynoecium, what is androecium, structure of ovule, and fertilization in plants, isn't it? Now your homework for today is that you can refer page number 248 for the fertilization in plants, and you have nearly about 8 to 9 points and the significance of fertilization, followed by the post fertilization changes. So this is an detailed answer 7-mark question. So be thorough with the fertilization in plants and copy this with the diagram that is shown in the screen. So with the diagram, copy this question in your classwork and submit your classwork in the school office on Friday, and we'll continue with the lesson, and we are going to see about the reproduction in humans, right? So we'll continue with the lesson in the next session. Thank you, children.